Scientists studied centenarians in Sardinia, Italy, then in southern China, then in Korea, then in India. 4 populations, thousands of miles apart, sharing no language, no diet tradition, no genetic ancestry in common. They all found the same bacteria. Not a similar bacteria, the same specific species, showing up as the strongest biomarker in every single study. A microbe most people have never heard of, called Akkermansia muciniphila. Here's why that matters more than it sounds like it should. When something this specific replicates across populations with nothing else in common, researchers stop calling it a coincidence. One bacteria. Documented in real studies, across 4 continents. And a handful of ordinary foods, several already covered on this channel, shown to feed it directly. That's what this video is about. This isn't a story about moving somewhere else or adopting an entire culture's way of life. It's about one specific organism and what actually feeds it. You don't need a passport to reach this mechanism. You need a grocery list. Scientists studied centenarians in Sardinia, Italy, then in southern China, then in Korea, then in India. 4 populations thousands of miles apart, sharing no language, no diet tradition, no genetic ancestry in common. They all found the same bacteria. Not a similar bacteria. The same specific species, showing up as the strongest biomarker in every single study. A microbe most people have never heard of called Akkermansia muciniphila. Here's why that matters more than it sounds like it should. When something this specific replicates across populations with nothing else in common, researchers stop calling it a coincidence. One bacteria. Documented in real studies, across 4 continents. And a handful of ordinary foods, several already covered on this channel, shown to feed it directly. That's what this video is about. This isn't a story about moving somewhere else or adopting an entire culture's way of life. It's about one specific organism and what actually feeds it. You don't need a passport to reach this mechanism. You need a grocery list. Here's what Akkermansia muciniphila actually does, and the name itself is a clue. It lives in the mucus layer lining your intestines. It feeds on mucin, the very substance that layer is made of. That sounds like it should be a problem. A bacteria eating away at your gut's protective lining. Here's the counterintuitive part. Eating mucin appears to stimulate your gut to produce more of it, not less. Researchers describe this as a genuinely unusual relationship. The bacteria consuming your mucus layer is, at the same time, the reason that layer stays thick and well-maintained. This connects directly to a mechanism already explained on this channel. A thicker, better-maintained mucus layer supports the same tight junctions already discussed in earlier videos. Those structures determine how easily bacterial fragments and inflammatory compounds cross into your bloodstream. There's a second piece worth understanding. The Sardinian centenarian study measured something beyond which bacteria were present. It measured what those bacteria were actually doing, functionally. Centenarians showed a notably high capacity for a process called glycolysis, and for producing short-chain fatty acids, the same SCFAs, acetate, propionate, and butyrate. Already explained across this channel's videos on the pancreas, the kidneys, the lungs, and the skin. Here's what that means, stated plainly. The exact mechanism this channel has followed through 5 different organs isn't a separate story for each one. It's the same underlying capacity. Centenarians appear to have more of it, produced by a gut community built around this specific organism. It's worth being precise about what kind of evidence this is. These are cross-sectional studies comparing gut bacteria at a single point in time across different age groups. They show a strong replicated association. They don't, on their own, prove that Akkermansia caused the longevity, rather than simply accompanying it. This video stays honest about that distinction. One more detail about this bacteria worth understanding, since it explains why researchers took the finding so seriously. Akkermansia typically makes up a small share of total gut bacteria in a healthy adult gut. In centenarian studies, that share showed up consistently higher and specific enough to stand out clearly against everything else present. A modest shift in a small population of bacteria, yet repeatable enough to become the single strongest signal in study after study. There's a timing question worth answering too, since it connects to a pattern already established on this channel. Gut bacteria populations shift in response to diet changes within days to weeks, not years. That doesn't mean Akkermansia abundance alone determines lifespan on any predictable timeline. It means the input side of this mechanism, what you eat, starts influencing the bacterial population relatively quickly. Even if downstream effects on long-term health unfold far more slowly. That's exactly what today's foods have in common. Each one has real evidence connecting it to Akkermansia abundance through a documented, specific pathway. Food 1. Berries. Berries have appeared on this channel before for their fiber and flavonoid content in the pancreas and lung videos. Here, a related but distinct mechanism applies. Berries are rich in polyphenols, plant compounds that reach your colon largely undigested. There, they appear to encourage Akkermansia growth directly. Alongside the soluble fiber reinforcing the mucus layer this bacteria depends on. Blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, and strawberries all contribute meaningfully here. Darker berries generally carry a higher polyphenol concentration, though all of them contribute to this same pathway. This connects to a detail already covered when berries first appeared in the context of the pancreas. The same polyphenol content driving that earlier benefit is doing entirely different work here, on an entirely different bacterial target. This is the same detail already covered when berries first appeared on this channel. Frozen berries preserve this content well, since freezing happens shortly after harvest. A realistic year-round addition, not one limited to a short growing season. Mixing varieties across a week rather than relying on just one type broadens exposure. Different polyphenol structures each interact with this bacterial target in their own way. Food 2. Cranberries and pomegranate. These two foods work through genuinely distinct pathways, which is part of why they're covered together. Cranberries contain a specific type of polyphenol, called A-type proanthocyanidins, structurally different from the polyphenols in most other berries. Research on cranberry polyphenols found they measurably shifted gut microbiome composition toward greater Akkermansia abundance. In animal studies, this shift was linked to protection against diet-induced weight gain. Pomegranate works through a different compound entirely, called elegitannins. These concentrate especially in the peel and pith, not just the juice. Because the two pathways are distinct, combining cranberries and pomegranate doesn't simply repeat the same effect twice. It reaches this mechanism from two separate directions at once. Pomegranate peel powder, sold as a standalone product, is a practical way to access this concentrated elegitannin content. Most people don't eat the peel and pith directly. A small amount stirred into water or yogurt delivers a meaningfully higher dose than the seeds alone. Unsweetened cranberry, not the sugar-heavy juice cocktail found on most grocery shelves, is the realistic version of this food. Whole pomegranate seeds, eaten directly, deliver more of the elagitanin-rich material than juice alone. Dried, unsweetened cranberries work as a realistic middle ground for anyone who finds fresh ones too tart. Checking the label for added sugar still matters. Many dried versions add back exactly what this video is trying to avoid. Food 3. Walnuts. Walnuts already appeared on this channel in the context of skin health through their linoleic acid content. Here, a separate body of research applies. A controlled dietary study directly compared a diet including walnuts against a nut-free diet, tracking gut bacteria composition throughout. The walnut group showed a significant increase in Akkermansia abundance, an effect attributed partly to walnuts' own elagitanin content, the same compound class found in pomegranate. This is worth noting as a pattern, not a coincidence. Walnuts, pomegranate, and cranberries all reach this same mechanism, each through their own specific polyphenol profile, converging on the identical bacterial target. Almonds and pecans, while nutritionally valuable in their own right, don't carry the same elagitanin content walnuts do. This particular benefit is fairly specific to walnuts among common tree nuts, worth knowing for anyone assuming any nut would deliver an identical effect. A small daily handful, roughly 30 to 40 grams, matches the amount used in the research behind this benefit, consistent with the portion already discussed when walnuts first appeared here. Raw or lightly roasted walnuts, without added oil or heavy salting, keep this closer to what the research tested. Candied or heavily processed versions sold as snacks drift further from it. Food. 4. Oats. Oats return to this channel for a fourth time, and by now the pattern should be familiar. The same beta-glucan fiber already explained for the pancreas, kidneys, and lungs is exactly the fiber this bacteria needs. It supports Akkermansia's mucus layer environment directly. This is worth sitting with directly. A single bowl of oats does 4 things at once. Supports insulin efficiency, reduces gut-made toxins reaching the kidneys, calms lung immune tone, feeds the specific bacteria found consistently in the gut of the world's longest-lived people. Not 4 separate reasons to eat oats. One mechanism, showing up in 5 different places this channel has now covered. The same preparation guidance already covered applies here without any change. Steel-cut or rolled oats, prepared simply, deliver a meaningful, realistic dose of this fiber. Combining oats with berries in the same bowl was already suggested in an earlier video for a different reason. It happens to reach this exact mechanism from 2 directions in a single breakfast. Add walnuts to that same bowl, and a single breakfast reaches this mechanism through 3 separate verified pathways at once. Nothing more complicated than a slightly fuller bowl. Food 5. Green tea, with a direct, honest limitation. Green tea already appeared on this channel for its catechin content, connected to lung health and separately to the brain's glymphatic system. Here, the evidence deserves unusually careful treatment. A study in mice found that EGCG, green tea's primary catechin, increased Akkermansia abundance by a striking 500%. That number sounds remarkable on its own. Here's the detail that changes how it should be read. In the same experiment, EGCG reduced the total gut bacterial count by 90%. Akkermansia became a much larger share of a substantially smaller overall population. This is genuinely different from the other foods in this video, and it's important to say so plainly. This finding comes from a mouse study, not a human trial. A dramatic shift in one direction, accompanied by a dramatic reduction overall, isn't a clean, unambiguous benefit. It would be dishonest to present this the same way as the walnut or cranberry research. Those showed a more straightforward increase, without that same trade-off. What's realistic to say is more modest. Green tea consumption is associated with better outcomes in the population-level blue zone research already discussed, particularly in Okinawa. The direct Akkermansia mechanism in humans remains genuinely less settled than the other foods covered in this video. That doesn't mean green tea has no place here. It means this particular pathway, Akkermansia specifically, isn't the strongest reason to drink it. The reasons already covered in earlier videos remain the more solidly supported ones: its connection to lung health and to the brain's lymphatic system. This is precisely the kind of distinction this channel keeps making, video after video. A food can be genuinely worth drinking for real, well-supported reasons, without every single claimed benefit attached to it carrying the same weight of evidence. The counterintuitive finding worth naming directly. Centenarians don't just have more Akkermansia. Multiple studies found they have measurably less Bacteroides, Roseburia, and Faecalibacterium. 3 bacterial groups often discussed favorably in other contexts, including elsewhere on this channel. This isn't a contradiction to smooth over. It's a reminder that a healthy gut isn't about maximizing every beneficial-sounding bacteria simultaneously. It's about a specific balance. Centenarian research suggests it looks different from what typical elderly populations carry. Researchers are still working to understand why. One possibility worth naming, without overstating it as settled fact. As Akkermansia occupies more space in the mucus layer, other populations may simply have less room to dominate. Not because they've become harmful, because the overall balance shifted toward a different equilibrium. Researchers haven't concluded that reducing Bacteroides or Roseburia directly is a goal worth pursuing on its own. That would be a significant overreach from what a correlational finding actually supports. The more accurate takeaway is narrower. Feed Akkermansia through the foods already covered, and this shift may follow as a downstream consequence, not something to chase directly. Here's the detail worth sitting with. Across everything in this video, none of these foods alone guarantees extreme longevity. What the research actually shows is different and still remarkable. A specific bacteria replicated across 4 unrelated populations of the longest-lived people on Earth. Fed by foods that keep reappearing across this channel's coverage of completely different organs. There's a reason this channel keeps returning to the same underlying idea, video after video, regardless of which organ or population that week's title mentions. This connects directly to territory already covered here. Berries, oats, walnuts, and green tea have each appeared before, tied to the pancreas, the kidneys, the lungs, the skin, and the brain. This video reveals something those earlier videos couldn't show on their own. The same foods, converging on the same specific bacteria, one that happens to be the strongest shared trait among the world's longest-lived populations. It's worth being precise about what this video can and can't claim. Correlation between Akkermansia and longevity, replicated across 4 populations, is genuinely strong evidence. It is not proof that eating these foods will extend your life by any specific amount. Cross-sectional studies capture a snapshot, not a guarantee about cause and effect over decades. It's also worth naming the honesty this video leaned on throughout. Berries, cranberries, pomegranate, and walnuts rest on real human and animal research showing a fairly direct, uncomplicated relationship with Akkermansia. Green tea's evidence is real but meaningfully more complicated, drawn from a mouse study with a significant trade-off attached. Presenting all 5 as equally clean would be dishonest. Presenting the differences clearly is what lets you weigh them accurately. It's also worth being honest about what "eat like a centenarian" actually means here. It's not a claim that any specific food guarantees 100 years. It's a narrower, still meaningful point. The gut bacteria most tied to the longest-lived humans responds to foods most people already have access to, several of which this channel has already covered for entirely different reasons. Consider how this fits into the larger pattern this channel keeps building. 5 organs, 5 mechanisms, 5 sets of foods. Underneath nearly all of them, the same short-chain fatty acid pathway, the same handful of ingredients. And now, one specific bacteria shared by the longest-lived populations on Earth. That's not a coincidence. It's the same reason this channel keeps returning to the gut, one layer at a time. There's also a fair question worth asking. Why hasn't this connection made it into more mainstream conversations about blue zones, given how consistently it replicates? Part of the answer is simple. Blue zones research and gut microbiome research developed in largely separate scientific communities, rarely cross-referenced until fairly recently. The connection isn't hidden. It's scattered across specialized literature most people, including most doctors, never have reason to read in full. There's one more piece of honesty worth adding before this closes. Akkermansia research is still a genuinely active area, with new findings published regularly. Some of what's considered settled today may shift as more human trials, rather than animal studies and cross-sectional comparisons, accumulate. That's not a reason to dismiss what's already known. It's a reason to hold it with the right confidence. Neither more nor less certain than the current evidence actually supports. If this breakdown gave you a bacteria to understand and specific foods that feed it, follow this channel. New videos connecting research exactly like this arrive every few days. Go back to where this video started. 4 populations, thousands of miles apart, sharing no language, no cuisine, no genetic history, all converging on the same bacteria. You now know 5 foods connected to that same organism. Berries, already familiar from earlier videos on this channel. Cranberries and pomegranate, working through 2 distinct polyphenol pathways. Walnuts, tested directly in a controlled human study. Oats, appearing for a 4th time across 5 different mechanisms. Green tea, honestly presented real but genuinely more complicated than the others. None of this replaces medical care, and none of it guarantees a specific outcome. If anything, it gives you something more specific than "eat like the blue zones" ever offered. 5 ordinary foods, each connected through real research. To the bacteria most consistently found in the gut of the longest-lived people scientists have studied. There's something worth sitting with here, beyond the 5 foods themselves. For years, blue zones got reduced to lifestyle inspiration. Slower mornings, strong friendships, a Mediterranean-style plate. None of that is wrong. This video was never about replacing it. It was about the specific, measurable layer underneath it, one that keeps showing up in population after population, whether or not anyone named it before. None of these 5 foods require anything unusual. Berries, oats, and walnuts sit on ordinary grocery shelves. Cranberries and pomegranate take one extra look at a label, avoiding the sugar-heavy versions. Green tea is already sitting in most kitchens. The barrier here was never access. It was simply not knowing which foods actually mattered and why. You don't need all 5 at once either. Starting with one is enough. The one that fits most naturally into a day you're already living. Oats already start your morning, if earlier videos on this channel already change that habit. A handful of walnuts already works as a snack. A realistic week might look like this. Berries added to oats most mornings, a pairing already familiar from earlier in this video. A small handful of walnuts as an afternoon snack. Dried, unsweetened cranberries or a handful of pomegranate seeds worked in somewhere across the week. None of that requires tracking anything. It requires noticing which of these 5 foods already fits into your day. Then, reaching for it on purpose. That word, repeatable, matters more than any single number in this video. None of these 5 foods demand perfection either. Missing a day or a week doesn't undo a pattern built across months. This system responds to trends. The same way it's responded to trends in every centenarian this research has studied, not to any single perfect afternoon. This mechanism doesn't reward one impressive week of eating followed by months of forgetting about it. It responds to consistency, the same quiet way it's shaped gut bacteria in centenarians their entire lives, long before any researcher had a name for it. If today's explanation gave you something more useful than vague blue zone inspiration ever did, follow this channel. New videos breaking down research exactly like this arrive every few days. Send this to someone who loves reading about blue zones. Someone who has never heard the actual bacteria connecting all of them, this directly. Leave a comment with the one food from this list you're most likely to actually add this week. There's a good chance the research has more to say about it than you'd expect. Think back to how this video opened. 4 populations, no shared history, converging independently on the same organism. What's changed now isn't the biology itself. It was running exactly the same way before this video and after it. What's changed is what you have now. A name for what these populations actually share. 5 specific foods that feed it. And the actual research behind each one presented honestly, strength by strength. The blue zones were never just a place on a map. They were a bacteria, waiting to be found. This video is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Always consult a healthcare professional.